All right, ladies and gents, she risked it all to speak the truth about money, taxes, and freedom. Can't wait to get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, ladies and gents, she's a former IRS agent turned fearless financial educator. She's made it her mission to expose the truth about taxes, money, and the financial systems holding people back. She's battled the government, helped countless Americans reclaim their financial freedom, and today she's here to tell you how you can take control of your wealth. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Sherry Peel Jackson. Doc is in the house. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Hernan, for having me on your show.
Of course. Former IRS agent that's going to give us the scoop on how we're going to save some stuff. Give me a little bit of background on yourself. Tell me about the ways of the dark side and how you got there.
Yes. And, I decided that I was going to be an accountant, long ago. My father said, when you're 18, you're getting out. So I was like, oh boy, I better pick something. And he gave me a magazine and said, here, look at these. You like nice things. So I didn't want to be a doctor, didn't want to be a lawyer, engineer. So I picked accounting because I'm pretty good at adding, multiplying, subtracting, and dividing. So went to school for accounting and then decided to get my CPA. I worked for CPA firms for a little while. Then I worked for corporate America, and that didn't work out because it was just too political. So I saw a ad in the paper for IRS agent. And I said, okay, well, I can do audits. And that's how I ended up with the IRS, better known as the insidious representatives of Satan.
You know what? My degree is also in accounting. I've had a tax practice in 2006. I've never heard that acronym before. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, that's when I made it. Because I've been on the inside and been on the outside here, and they take your money. I mean, people need their money to live. People need their money to grow wealth, and they take it and they do stuff with it that we don't want done with it. So that's why I call them that.
Oh, I 100% agree. One of my favorite things during tax season is to cut the check. Not to give the bad news, but to cut the check. That's always the greatest part. You went from working inside the IRS to becoming a very vocal critic of the IRS. What triggered that transformation? What was that straw that broke the camel's back?
People kept coming to me saying, hey, the income tax is being misrepresented and misapplied to the American people. And I would put that information in the back of my head, but at some point or another, prominent people were saying that to me because they would ask, what do you do? And I'm an IRS agent. And, you know that you're doing wrong to people, that kind of thing. So there was a challenge in the USA Today back in 2000. And it said they were going to give somebody $50,000 to prove that we actually have to file an income tax return and pay an income tax. And that's when it all started because I wanted that $50,000 and I did the research and went down an endless rabbit hole to find out that, the income tax is being misrepresented and misapplied. Right now, President Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, is talking about the tariffs. Well, that's what the Constitution has. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot behind that. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of deviant things going on with the banksters, which is, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all those making up a central bank and putting an income tax on the American people. But it's just not something that we should be having to put up with. We as Americans should be free.
There's a different way to do things. The tax system itself is super complicated. When I teach that section in my class, it's one of those subjects that has a lot of people who are interested, not a lot of people who actually go in and learn a lot of this stuff because that tax code is so big. Everybody has a little place where they get their back scratched in that code, but it makes it so complicated. Not just that, the progressive tax system, credits and deductions and this entity versus that entity, your filing status, it can get crazy. What are some of, in your experience, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that Americans have about income tax today?
Well, the biggest thing is they don't pay attention and they don't read. And so a lot of the things that are in the tax code is really written for businesses. And if
Hmm.
you don't have a business, and I like home-based businesses, then you're going to forever be a slave to the tax system, because as an employee, you can't write off your cell phone. You can't write off your mileage. You can't write off anything. But as a business owner, you get to do whatever your work is, you collect your revenue, and then you get to make deductions first before you pay a dime. So if you're good at it, like I am, then you won't have to pay, because you write off everything but the kitchen sink. And I'm not telling people to just put crazy stuff on there that's not true, but strategically, wealthy don't pay taxes. Why is that? Because they know how to structure their businesses, their income, and their expenses to where they don't have to pay. And that's what the people don't know. Everybody doesn't know that.
Yeah, the analogy I like to use is Monopoly. The first time you played Monopoly, you probably stunk at it. You weren't very good. But the second time you played, maybe you had a chance of winning. And the only difference between the first and the second is you understood the rules to the game. And the IRS tax code is the rules to this money game. And if you want to win at the money game, then you kind of have to know what the rules are so that you can play by them and take advantage of every single loophole or, tax advantage way of taking those deductions that you definitely deserve. So you keep more of the money that you earned. Now, you talk a lot about financial freedom. What does that really look like for the average person, and how can they actually get there?
They have to change their mindsets, because we're stuck in the job. So Robert Kiyosaki has a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant.
Love
And
it.
there are 4 quadrants. You're an employee, you have a job, you're self-employed, you own a job. The next quadrant over is you're a business owner, which you have systems and people working for you. And then you're an investor, where you have money working for you. So to cross over from being an employee or owning a job, which is self-employment, to being a business owner and an investor, is where everybody falls short if they're not paying attention. And let me explain the difference between having a business and being self-employed. Being self-employed, you own a job, you're a contractor with somebody. So if you get sick or you go on vacation, there's no money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a business owner, you have systems in place and people working for you, and you can go on vacation as long as you want to. Or if you're sick, money is still coming in. People need to understand. They don't, people run around saying, I own my own business. No, you're a contractor for somebody. If you get sick, no money's coming in. So I teach my clients how to become business owners and investors so they can have that income coming in. Also, we need to explain my definition of wealth, best definition of wealth that I have ever heard. Wealth is measured by the number of days you can survive without physically working, or anyone else in your household physically working, and still maintain or increase your standard of living. And when you can do that, you're wealthy. The Oprahs of the world, the Elon Musk of the world, they don't ever have to work a day in their life, because they have systems in place to make their money make money.
I love that. I always tell people that retirement is not an age problem. Everybody thinks about retiring at 59 and a half, 62, 67. These are all numbers because of different, traditional tax deferred plans or whatever it is. That's not a retirement number.
Yeah.
The retirement number is exactly what you described in wealth, right? If you ever play the game cash flow, it's very simple. When your passive income covers your expenses, you no longer have to go to work. Now, you might not be living the lifestyle you want, but it gives you a choice, right?
Yeah.
When you have that flexibility, now all of a sudden, I still believe the human needs purpose, that we have to go out there and do something for the betterment of mankind, because I think it gives us purpose. But choosing what to do with that time is much more valuable than you clocking in your 9 to 5, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's what we need to educate people on. You have an out. People are comfortable with their jobs, and that's the issue. But life begins at the end of your comfort zone, because when you say, okay, I have a job and I'm going to keep this job. Most of my clients have jobs. They work 9 to 5, but when they come home, instead of turning on the electronic income reducer, which is what I call the television and the video games, they take an hour, they decompress with their family, eat their dinner, and then they start working on their home-based business, because they're looking at a future. They want wealth. They want to build a legacy. So they're not going to waste that time and give other people their time, making the other people rich. they're going to live like no one else now so that later they can live like no one else. And that's what they do. They start home-based businesses, work on them in the evenings, work on them on the weekends, and either keep their jobs and take that money and grow it faster while their jobs are paying for their mortgages and rent and car notes and stuff. Or at some point they quit their jobs and then, discover that financial and literal freedom.
Now, at the end of the day, let's assume people realize that that is an issue, especially in 2025 where things are just so expensive. You kind of have to have that side hustle, that business to generate that extra revenue. Sometimes for some people, just to put food on the table. It's sad that we're even in that situation. So let's assume that the business owner started to go out and do something. They have an idea, the product, service. They go out, they start making some money, and then they start talking to their CPA and their accountant, and you start getting that question of how can I legally avoid taxes? What can the middle class entrepreneur learn from their CPA or from someone like you to avoid legally paying taxes?
Well, CPAs are in the box. I'm all the way outside of the box. As a matter of fact, I don't know where the box is anymore, but I do know one thing. Internal Revenue Code Section 162 says that all ordinary and necessary business expenses are deductible. So what is ordinary and necessary? And I'll give you an example. Back in 1994, there was a woman, her name was Cindy Hess, and she wrote off a breast enlargement on her tax return. The IRS got a hold to it and they just laughed themselves under the table, took away her breast enlargement as a tax deduction. But Cindy has fought for it. She got lawyers and she went to court to get that deduction. And the tax court gave her that deduction. Why did she get a chance to deduct her breast enlargement? Because Cindy Hess, better known as Chesty Love, was a pole dancer. And the tax court found that it was ordinary and necessary for her to have that because she had to keep up with the younger girls and keep her business going. So ordinary and necessary is common, helpful, and appropriate. These are common, normal, helpful, appropriate business expenses. So if she can write off her breast enlargement, people shouldn't be scared to write off everything but the kitchen sink within their business. For example, if I take my granddaughter to Orlando, which I did, and we went to Universal Studios. Well, I set up some appointments down there, clients down there, set up a meeting down there. So part of that was tax deductible instead of just going down there and having zero deduction. Mm-hmm. When I do my mileage, I will incorporate some business into it so that I can write off the mileage. It takes work, but when you do it, then you get to write off everything.
And we're living in a new technology age. I mean, keeping track of your miles, you have Mile IQ. Like, it's pretty simple. The app will do it for you. It's not like you're logging it down like back in the day. There's so many different products out there that'll help you find a lot of these solutions to put that money, at least categorize it so that your CPA knows where to put it when it comes tax time.
Right.
You also talk about the concept of income shifting. How do small business owners use that to kind of lower that tax burden as well?
So we want to have multiple streams of income. So when I talk about income shifting, it's making sure that if you have several tops spinning, make sure that you have the first top spinning on its own before you start another one. Also, making sure that when you start making money, you don't start spending it. What you do in that business is you invest the money back into the business, or you use it to pay off debt, or a little bit of both. I've seen people start businesses, they start making money, and then they're going out and buying a new Mercedes, or they got 6 flat screen TVs in their house. And that's not the kind of income shifting we want. We want to shift the income that we are making on the business into growth vehicles. There are a lot of different things that will grow your wealth. The money that you're making on your job, continue to use that to pay for the bills. Don't make any more bills. My KPG system teaches that. It's keep what you earn, protect what you earn, and grow what you earn. So this whole system is set up to make people win, to make people be able to gain wealth and build a legacy. First thing you do, make sure that you're not spending all the money that comes in. And that's the easiest way to make income is to get rid of expenses. For example, cable TV. I don't have TV. My mentor told me if I'm not making $10,000 a month, I shouldn't be watching TV. And I wasn't watching it before then because we don't want to spend our time doing something that's not profitable for ourselves and our family.
profit producing activities are going to do exactly that, produce the profit that you're looking for. It kind of makes sense. But let me ask you this on the flip side, because you hear this over and over again: don't spend what you make, put it away, put it to work for you. Problem is, people don't realize that at the beginning it's tough. Later on, you get to take advantage of these things. So what does that look like? At what point can I feel comfortable about having my Starbucks coffee, or taking the kids, both of them, to a theme park because maybe I was only taking one at a time or something like that? Like, at what point do I start living and not just worrying about my future, but being in the present moment?
Yes, I don't agree with just pinching pennies and eating beans and rice. I don't agree with that, but I do agree with delayed gratification, and that's an art that is not around anymore. My dad taught me delayed gratification. If you do this now, do it long enough, and then the payoff is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm saying is, for example, if you have a family of 4, and both the spouses are working and they're just surviving, well, situation where they start a home-based business, both of them share in the business. Maybe one of them works it during the week in the evenings, another works it on the weekends, whatever. When you pay off your personal debt, and then you start working on growing the business and putting what I have like a luxury account. So I put money aside in that. I'm a big advocate of the book called The Richest Man in Babylon, trying to put away, some people 10%, some people 20% of your money so that you can have that wealth building. Well, I also have a little side pocket or pouch over there for, luxury, which means, I can go, I have a home in Costa Rica, and I'm a budding real estate developer. So I have 2 communities that I'm building in Costa Rica on the Caribbean coast. So I go to Costa Rica 4 times a year to make sure that things are still moving. And then I bought a house because it became cost prohibitive to keep staying in hotels and Airbnbs for 2 or 3 weeks while I'm there. So that fund makes sure that the next time I go to Costa Rica, I don't have to use credit cards. I use my debit card, or, what I have accounts over there, but I have money. What we need to do is make sure that we delay the gratification. We can't go on vacation and come back with more bills than we left with. So that's the issue. When you get to the point where your bills are paid or close to paid, but at the same time that you're paying the bills, put money aside for luxury, put money aside for entertainment. Don't just work yourself to death. Go on staycations. Maybe whatever your town is, take a weekend and go downtown to a nice hotel to get away. You need that time to revive yourself. You need that time. So that's what I tell people to do.
And just as you're describing the Costa Rica story, it kind of reminds me of kind of a misconception that I think a lot of people have, because you're in accounting, you're talking about a sinking fund. You're putting money away for something that you want to do later on. But at the same time, you're struggling. You're thinking about not having the cash to do stuff. And what I think people miss is all those trips, by the way, whether you spent them on Airbnbs or you cut back on the house, they're all tax deductible. These are all ordinary, necessary, expenses that you have to pay for in order to produce the income that you're working for. So, managing your budget and putting together those sinking funds, that's one aspect of that financial planning. The other aspect is actually doing the spending in a tax advantage ways. 2 separate things, but in the same path, taking in the same direction. Yes. Now, you've created a number of different courses, a lot of different resources. What are some that you might recommend for entrepreneurs just starting out and they want to get themselves in a situation where come January 1st and they got to file their tax returns, they're prepared to do this correctly?
So I have books, and I know people don't read, but you really, really need to read. My flagship book is How to Stick It to the IRS, Confessions from a Former Insider. And that basically talks about, the IRS and how they operate, especially when they audit you. My other book is How to Escape the Rat Race, 4 Keys to Acquire the Life of Your Dreams. That one is the path. That's more like the KPG system. What do you do when you have to start from nothing? First of all, you learn how to reduce your expenses. After you do that, you get rid of debt. Then you increase your income, and then you start growing your money for wealth. Another book I wrote with my mentor, Myron Golden, and it's Increase Your Income and Reduce Your Taxes. So he's the genius at making money in starting businesses. And then I come in from a tax aspect and tell them, once you start making this money, you need to start making sure that you put some strategies in place to keep your taxes low or even nothing.
Yeah, I love the book you mentioned earlier, Richest Man in Babylon. These are your golden slaves, and then those golden slaves got to have babies. You got to put those babies to work. Never lose that money that you're putting forward. Or Warren Buffett, right? The first rule of investing is don't lose money. Second rule
Right.
is don't lose money.
Lose
Like, it's
money.
pretty safe. See rule number one. And a lot of this comes with education, having financial literacy. I teach a course called Financial Algebra in high school. It's for high school seniors. And I love this whole aspect of getting them squared away and put together. Earlier, we talked about a sinking fund and putting money away. There's another book, and I agree with you. People should read more. And if you don't want to read, there's audio versions of the book. So there's no excuse why you can't do that. But one of the things, or two apps that I recommend to my students all the time. One is Rocket Money, because it allows you to create some of these sinking funds for things that you want to do. And the other one is Acorns, because it'll automatically start putting money away for yourself, out of, rounding up your money and putting stuff away. And it's just the truth of the matter is, if you don't have it set automatic, you're always going to be like everybody else, and you're going to try to save what's left over. And the problem is, there's too much month at the end of your money. There's never anything left over.
Yes.
Any other cool tools like that you see, or you help people kind of get themselves in a groove to put money away from themselves and get themselves prepared for their future?
I'm just old school, and I just tell them to start different. I call them pots, little golden pots. So you have a short-term savings, because I don't believe that there are emergencies. It's just poor planning. If your washer and dryer is 15 years old, you shouldn't have to run out with a credit card and buy a new washer when it goes out. You should have been putting
Great.
money aside for that. And so I say that's for your short term, so you save maybe $2,000 to the side for the short term things like the new tires or the washer. Then you have a long term savings if you need a new car, if you want your child to go to college, which I don't recommend these days unless they are trying to get some kind of a license. Otherwise, I believe in the trades. And then you have your wealth fund. That's where you're going to never touch it. It's going to be invested, and it's going to make money for you. So I teach them how to do that. And it's the discipline these days is kind of scarce also, because we've gotten into this culture where it's buy now, pay later, use a credit card and do it. And then when those credit card bills come in, then people get overwhelmed, and there's a lot of bankruptcy going on and all that. So just making sure that mental discipline is there. That's the hardest part for me, getting them out of the mindset of, I need everything that I want right now, to delayed gratification that my father taught me when I was a young girl.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm old school too. I mean, I still teach taxes on paper because I feel like that's the best way for you to understand how it works. I still make them balance a checkbook, even though most kids are probably never going to write a check in their life. It's just the process of going through the reconciliation and looking at your transactions and making sure that what's there and spent is actually spent and going where it's supposed to be going. I don't want people to get in trouble. And then, speaking of trouble, you face some serious legal and personal challenges for what you speak out about, and because of where you've been and the knowledge that you have. What drives you to keep going?
Truth is true for everybody, or it's not truth at all. And the truth is, we are being enslaved, whether we're black, white, green, blue, pink with purple polka dots, whether we're Christian, Jew, Muslim, whatever we are, we've been enslaved by a system. And when people stop fighting each other and realize that it's the system that's causing us to have these issues, to have the 2008, for example, stock market went down 777.68 points in one day, and Americans lost $10.2 trillion in their savings. It didn't disappear. It went to the banksters that were too big to fail. It went to foreign banks, and it went to these companies to give their CEOs golden parachutes. And it's like, when are we going to learn that we are not our enemy? This system is our enemy. And I keep fighting because I see where we can be a free people if we learn, and if we stop being beholden to the system and say, wait a minute now, if that person can make all this money and I learn how to do that, then I can make this money. If that person can build up their wealth and I learn how to, for example, use a private interest foundation, use LLCs, corporations, and trusts properly like they do. If you do what the wealthy do, you can have what they have. But we're so busy working all these jobs to make, money that they're going to take. And then on the weekends, there are all these sports and the football and all these sports and all that. And I know people want to entertain themselves, but until Tom Brady or somebody starts stroking me a check, my team is the Jackson team.
Exactly. I love that. It's true though. It's true. I mean, you get to choose what ends up happening. I mean, if you really want to get like vicious with it, look in the mirror, look at your situation. You're only there most of the time because of the choices that you've made in life. And the only way it's going to change, no matter, even if you were dealt a bad hand and it wasn't your choice and you're in a situation, the only way it's going to change is through you. Like you have to physically decide, I don't want this anymore. I need to do something different, and then actually take the initiative and take the action to do that thing differently and move in that other direction.
Yeah, exactly. Les Brown said something that really, and I just learned it not too long ago. You're not going to get what you want. You're going to get who you are, and that's powerful. The people, I want this and I want that. You're not going to get what you want. You're going to get who you are. So who are you? And I go through a ritual at the end of each year, and it's a 8 questions to design your future. And I'm not going to go through but 3 of them. The first 3 questions: what do I want? Very powerful. The second question is, why do I want it? In other words, why is it important to me? But the third one is even more powerful. What am I willing to give up to get it? So I've been doing this since like 2004 or something like that. And I have a booklet with them from 2011 going forward. These are the things that I wanted. And, I tweak it during the year. And at the end of the year, I evaluate last year. Did I get that book done? Did I get my doctorate done? Did I do these things? What was it that stopped me from doing them? And do they need to go on the list for next year? What do I want? Why do I want it? And what am I willing to give up to get it? And people a lot of times aren't willing to give up the junk food. They're not willing to give up the leisure time. They're not willing to give up whatever it is that's causing them not to achieve their goal of wealth and freedom.
And that's why the Matrix has that great choice. It's not the choice. You already made the choice. You just got to deal with the consequences of that choice, right? Like nobody's forcing you to give that up. Ain't nobody gonna, put you at gunpoint and make you change. But you're going to be where you're going to be because of who you are. I love that 100%. Dr. Jackson, if people want to reach out to you, they are stuck in a situation, they want to learn how to make the change, they want to get themselves out of the rat race, how can they do that?
They can go to connect@sherrypeeljackson.com. And they can go to my website, sherrypeeljackson.com. I have a few small courses on there, but my work is more tailor-made because especially when it comes down to taxes, everybody has a different situation and nobody wants to really discuss that with a lot of people. So we get down dirty into it. If somebody's being audited, I love to help people that are being audited because the IRS doesn't know I'm helping them. I help behind the scenes and they win audits because the IRS thinks they don't know anything. And boom, they come up with this report saying, I've helped a lady before, her and her husband. She had MS. The day she found out that she had MS, she got a letter in the mail that she was being audited. She had a business and she had already contacted me about teaching her workers a little bit of stuff. So she called me. She said, I can't do this. I just got this diagnosis. Got with her and her husband. She ended up getting a refund because I told them what to do to make sure they got their expenses together. And they had a lot more expenses than the CPA put on the tax return. A lot of tax preparers, and you probably know this, are afraid to take all the deductions because they're afraid of audit. They want some kind of leverage just in case the client gets audited. You don't do that to people. You take all the deductions, regardless of whether they get audited or not. If they're valid deductions, they're going to take them. So they can email me, connect@sherrypeeljackson.com. I check my email regularly, and I'm here to help people keep, protect, and grow what they earn. And also to beat the insidious representatives of Satan. I said, starve the beast. What we want to do is we want to starve this beast that's taking all of our extra resources. $10,000, $12,000 a year going to the IRS. That's somebody's college education. That's somebody's new car, down payment, all these different things. And we need all of our revenue. We need this.
Oh, 100%, 100%. January to April 15th, that's tax season. It's also the time that you work for the government, which is kind of one of those weird situations when you really think about about how much money is being taken out. And it's not, we talk about taxes. It's just, usually federal and state taxes. But on top of that, you got your local, you got your Medicare, you got your Social Security. So your paycheck is getting milked quite a bit. And if you want to learn more about how you can get yourself out of the rat race, maybe shift your income into different ways, understanding how business works, make sure you guys go to sherrypeeljackson.com, sherrypeeljackson.com. Learn from the master who's been in Satan's pit, worked there for a while, and is now out to burn the place down. Or can you do that? Maybe water it down? I don't know how that works exactly.
No, don't water it down. That's it right there.
So either way, ladies and gentlemen, sherrypeeljackson.com is where you want to go. Ms. Jackson, I got one more question for you. If someone's listening and wants to unplug from the system, build generational wealth, what's your last piece of advice? What's that first step they need to do?
They have to start a home-based business. They got to clear up the time in the evening or those hours that they're not working, because everybody doesn't have a 9 to 5. You got to start a home-based business. That extra revenue is going to speed you up as far as your goals. It's going to get you out of debt quicker. You're going to be able to build wealth quicker. And you got to know where to put the money when you start building it. And that's when you come to me.
Love it. Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, for some of you, an extra $100, $200, $300 a month is going to make or break your rent, make or break the food on your table. You can do that really easily in the world today, especially in the digital age. You got to find a way to not only start building your business, but take back some of those taxes that are your money that you earned anyways in the most legal way possible. So reach out to Dr. Sherry Peel Jackson. Go to her website, sherrypeeljackson.com. Get that information, start to learn, get your mentors in a bunch, especially the ones that have already been there. Those are the best kind of mentors to have. So one more time, Sherry Peel Jackson, thank you very much for being on the show today, Doc. We'll catch you guys all in the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.